So, good morning, Master Fruitstone.
Master Young, good morning.
Yeah, how you doing in Florida?
Good. Dodging raindrops the next couple of days.
I'm doing a rain dance out here because it was 109 yesterday,
Oh, that's
and we haven't
insane.
had rain for a month and a half. So we're not in a good place. We're scared about fires, a lot of things going on here. But this is a hot topic. Nice segue. I wanted to chat with you today a little bit about this idea of martial art training versus sports training. And the reason why it kind of triggered me was I was at the ITF coaches conference in Ireland, and a couple of young fellas from the Irish team were walking with me to the venue. And one of the fellows looks at me and he says, "We didn't even know that they had this type of Taekwondo in the United States." And I was like, "Oh, really?" And he went on to say, "Yeah, don't you guys just break concrete and stuff like that?" And I started thinking about it. There's a lot there to try to understand why he was saying. I think he was just messing with me a little bit. But the reality is that there's some impressions. There's impressions both within our country and outside of our country that people in the United States kind of have this, martial art, we're fighting for our lives, self-defense idea, and we're going to train that way. And there's a lot of different Taekwondos in the United States as well. And on the other hand, there's these guys that are doing sports training to get ready for World Cups and World Championships and want to do the sporting aspect of quadrathlon, Taekwondo, to do specialty, power test, pattern, and sparring. And so I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on these different types of training, and are they even different?
Yeah, I think, as far as the perception of Taekwondo, and you kind of hit on it, ITF Taekwondo is not well understood in the United States. It's not big. There's a lot of fracturing. People that used to be in are out, and we have so many organizations. Plus, we have WT Taekwondo that's very big. And I don't think that it's necessarily the wrong view, but there's a lot of really excellent Taekwondo being taught here in the United States, and there are great practitioners too. Some are full-time, some are part-timers, and they're great competitors. And we have, we may not have the litany of world champions that they have in Europe, but I think that that's a product of the fracturing of Taekwondo, not the quality of the competitor. What people forget is that, General Choi was an innovator, right? He was very progressive. You and I, prior to this, we talked briefly, and, in the encyclopedia, there's an entire section. Actually, the next encyclopedia starts on page 376, and it's got all kinds of training tools. And those were the tools of the time that they had. And there's makawaris, which are traditional tools, but there's things like heavy bags and swinging bags and all kinds of things, and stretching tools and bars and things that we use now as training tools. But the difference is that training has continued to evolve. And General Choi would have been in line with that too, but they're not mutually exclusive. We don't have to separate the two. And I think that we spend a lot of time doing that. And the view from other places where they have a number of world champions that are coming in, they're getting the best of all worlds. And sometimes we're just doing one or two things, where they're only training the sport aspects of it, or we're only training the traditional, and we're saying, okay, well, this is not good, or this is not good. And the reality is that they're both great, and they're both necessary to create the competitor that we're after, but also the martial artist that we're after.
But then there's also things where people actually have this idea that martial art training is different. And so what they do is they tell me, I've got students that come into my club often, and they tell me, well, my instructor, we never kicked above the waist, because anything like that is a waste of time on the street. You're going to get killed if you kick above the waist on the street. Or we'll never do spinning techniques, because if you turn your back on your opponent, you're dead. And so that idea is something that I have a counter argument for, and that is that, well, first of all, I love the idea of self-defense, that I have a purpose for my training. Master Hutton in England talks about this, training with purpose. And that is so much more powerful than like flipping tires and CrossFit. I know it's going to help my core, but at least I have some I have a purpose here. And that may be that I am developing very high level techniques to counter someone else's counter technique that include things like jumping, spinning, kicking high, kicking to the head because it has a higher value target in sport. And all of those pieces make me a better physical athlete. I have better balance. I'm able to kick dynamically. I'm able to have, better control of my body. And for me, if you have better control of your body and you're in a better condition athletically, you are setting yourself up for success if you had to do something that was a self-defense situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And Master Hutton's a great example of that because of the way he teaches. He is very purpose driven, right? I think fit for purpose is his his brand.
Yeah.
But he's a Scottish coach, and the Scotland competitors are excellent.
Yeah.
And they can do everything.
Yeah.
So they can do the event stuff and the non-event stuff, and they're good at it. Is that, I use the concept of athletic development, regardless of what I'm going to be teaching that day, whether it's step sparring, which is not a sport activity, or free sparring or patterns or fundamentals, doesn't matter. So we'll do our warm up, which is graded, and it's not a traditional warm up from the old days. It's a graded warm up, because we use sports science to prepare our people now. But there's a progression, and all of these things are connected. They're not separate. So we just can't make those mistakes as instructors and coaches.
Well, you said something else also about your drilling. I've heard other comments, something in terms of martial versus sport, and that some of the people that say, well, look, we don't do sparring because we just do pattern. We just do patterns. We do our forms. We're going to stay in that. That's the tradition. And for me, all that sparring drilling is a pattern. It's just a pattern that's been modified for this particular purpose. And so the purpose you can make the argument that these very old patterns that we practice in pattern training and in pattern competition are a little bit outdated. One could make that argument. And that we need to update our pattern practice so that we're repeating these motions, so that in the case of a stressful self-defense situation, or by the way, a similar situation, a stressful competition situation, you've trained your body to make these movements.
The general kind of tried to identify is the idea of competition sparring versus free sparring. We use the term free sparring pretty liberally in ITF Taekwondo to be the competitive version of sparring, but according to the general, free sparring was a non-contact version of sparring where you used every technique there was. Fingertip thrusts, all kinds of stuff. And obviously you can't, but you need to have the athletic ability to do all those things, or you can't do the other stuff anyway. If you can't move and fight and counter and make good decisions about the appropriate attacking tool, if you can't do that in free sparring and competition-based sparring, you can't do it in free sparring either. So you got to have both. When I teach drills, if we're doing partner drills and stuff, I will teach a concept, right? So we'll be working on if the person comes in and with the side kick and we're moving to one side, I will teach I'll teach why we move to this direction and what are the advantages, and then I will demonstrate counters that I use, or lead attacks that I use personally to deal with that situation. But I don't limit my people to doing exactly what I do, because if I have a heavyweight, for example, and they have a great rear leg dolio, and it's very powerful and they have great reach with it because they're 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", they may use a different tool following the same principle, the same concept that's natural for them. So I don't try to limit my people. And as we drill, I let people kind of discover what works best for them personally, right? Based on the concept. And then we add more chaotic, dynamic flow to these things, right? So I might have a bunch of different people coming the same way. So they'll get different bodies, right? So I might have 5 or 6 people in a row, each attacking the same attack, but you're getting 6 different views of it, and repetition. It becomes much more chaotic. Everybody moves a little bit different. no two people's techniques exactly the same, but you have to deal with it all the same. So that's not only great for sparring, but it's great for self-defense.
Yes. That's this type of scenario training, which we do in sparring training or competition training. We create a scenario. Here you're fighting someone who's like a good counterattacker. How can you counter their counters? How do you set those up? You set up some rules within a game scenario, and then you let the competitor kind of explore what their capabilities are. What are some options within this confined set of scenario? What comes out of them? And that, to me, is a great way to develop ownership of the art. It makes them feel like this is my sport, my art. It develops confidence
For sure.
that they know what their abilities are, and it gives them an attitude of confidence. And if they have that attitude of confidence, that helps them in competition. But it also helps you in a self-defense situation. I mean, this is something about what you project, your attitude. It is a non-victim attitude. It's not, I am not projecting the person that is giving up. I'm the one that's going to try. And so you're just less likely to be, the target. Something that when you look at winners in the competition of pattern, for example, that they are projecting that confidence out of them. And even if they make small errors that maybe their opponent didn't make, that there's something overwhelming about their presentation that just can influence. And it influences this type of attitude and development of your ego, development of your confidence, and not in a negative way, but in a positive way, is right there in competition. Sporting competition helps us develop awareness, adaptability, physical fitness, and confidence. And those things are all things we need to be able to defend ourselves.
Yeah, without a doubt. If I'm a perpetrator in a crime, maybe I don't pick this person.
That's right.
Maybe this one isn't going to go the way I think it's going to go.
That's right.
And then as a competition, if you're doing patterns and your eyes are focused and you are just you're just emanating confidence and overwhelming control of the ring, there's a ring strategy there.
Yeah.
Can't touch it, can't smell it, can't taste it, but it's there.
Yeah, in Korean culture, they call this or I've heard this called Nundangja, and I apologize if I mispronounced, but it's essentially the apple of the eye. The idea, here's the eye, the eye of the tiger. This is our projection, and it's this window that we have. We all project it, and that is a critical part of success. In competitions, I think, in my mind, in a stressful situation of self-defense, it's also critical. So I think that's a great conversation to get started, and other folks, if they wanted to comment on it, they could. We want to keep these short and sweet. I'm the chair of the ITF America Coaches Committee. Master Fruitstone is a member of that committee, and he will be one of the presenters coming September 16th, this September 16th, for our 4th ITF America Coaches certification course. We have 6 planned. This is the 4th one. If you missed the others, it's no problem. You can join and watch this one. We're going to cover warm-up, not nutrition. We've already covered that.
Already did that.
Yes, we already did that one, and it was a great one and well received. But we're going to cover warm-up, proper warm-up. We're going to cover flexibility training, and we're going to cover a little bit of sports psychology, how coaches can communicate with their athletes. It's a 2-hour on Zoom seminar. Will be available to ITF America members and anyone else who's interested. So I will put that poster when I post this link.
I always enjoy having conversations with you, Master Young. Hopefully people enjoy this. If there's something specific that maybe people want to talk about, feel free to email either myself or Master Young, and we'll be happy to research it, discuss it.
Absolutely. Yeah, our intention is to kind of give a view of what's going on in the United States and how we're all trying to improve. ITF Taekwondo here. And so any topic is open. We might do some interviews. We might do some real practical drilling stuff for competition. We're keeping it open, but anything people have interest in, let's get started. Let's talk. All right. Thank you for this coach's chat, sir.
Thank you.